So today I want to talk about Teen Town, the famous Jaco Pastorius / Weather Report tune. This has been a song that's been with me for several years, 20 years actually. I used to play this when I was still studying music, and it's gone through some changes over the years. I started out with like a real book sort of transcription and just followed that note for note because I hadn't developed my ear enough to actually hear what was actually going on. And believe it or not, there are a few wrong notes in that classic old transcription. And another reason why I wanted to do this is because I've seen a lot of YouTube bass players, very good ones, talk about this song and how to play it and discussing fingerings and whatnot. And even though most of it, I can't talk today, sorry. Even though most of it is actually correct, there are some things that I would like to explain how I think about them and why I think it is what I think it is. There are some differences, and I will explain also why and how I came to this conclusion about all of this. And I will also make sure to somehow provide the transcription as a PDF, probably as a link in the description box below. And for those of you who don't read the description box on YouTube videos, do that. It will answer many questions. Many YouTubers are very good at writing down seriously good information in their description boxes, so read it. Anyhow, let's get on with it. So the famous Teen Town, it starts out with a chord progression that's only 13 chords. So it's a C13, an A13, an F13, and a D13. And one bar each. So we have pretty much the whole scale thing covered there, except in a 13 chord you don't really play the 11th, so you can do sort of what you want with the 11. You want to have it a regular fourth interval or a sharp 4 or sharp 11, and Jaco really does exploit this in quite a few places. So let's start from the beginning. We start with this kind of melodic intro where the bass doesn't do anything. You can actually play it if you want to. Minor thirds, starting from A and C, and then you play just moving that minor third, and then you move it up with the start on the D and the F, and then two high Cs. If you want to play along with that, you can. You can also play that one octave higher if you have a 24th fret bass, because you need the 24th fret to reach the high D there. This one is not, obviously, and neither was Jaco's, and he didn't play that part anyway. So the first real bass thing that happens is the opening line, which is probably one of the most technically challenging ones. Especially if you want to play it the way he did, or that I'm fairly certain that he did on the recording. I watched several live clips on YouTube with Jaco playing this song, and he does some unusual fingerings for sure. And if you listen to the live versions and really look at what his hands are doing, and then compare it against the original recording, where the bass is very audible, you can really hear the differences between the strings and how they sound and such. Then you can really tell that he's doing some unusual fingerings. So the first one is kind of an octave thing. He has like a pedal note, the low C, which is the root. Maybe I should turn the volume up here, if I can. Does anything happen? There we go. almost distorting. All right, too much. Try that. So he does the C, then he goes to the octave C, and now he's alternating between this pedal note C and other chord tones. So it's the octave first, and then the flat 7, distortion, nice. The fifth, the G, back to the C, and here the only live version that I could find where I could actually see what his hands were doing on this one, he does a very rapid position shift here from the C to the E flat on the D string. And you can do that if you're superhuman, and I can do that at 128 BPM, 16th notes. Sure, do it. But I prefer to actually switch it around. So when I go to the 5th, then I change to my middle finger on the C, which gives me some extra time to make the index finger go to the D string. And what makes this part a little bit tricky is also that it doesn't start on the downbeat. It's on the second 16th note. Imagine playing a downbeat and then starting after it, so like a ghost note. You don't really hear it, you don't really play it, but you sort of imagine it. Yeah, so the rest of that thing is the minor third and a hammer-on. He doesn't actually pluck these notes, it's a hammer-on. And it doesn't slide either, it's a hammer-on. Open G, A, open G, E, D, and C sharp. I'm sorry about the distortion. We'll have to live with that. I like distortion. I'm still a metalhead. So that whole part is and then comes the next chord, which is the A13. And then it plays this little arpeggio, which is also a 16th note after the downbeat. And that it's the root note, the A, and then it's the 13th, the F sharp, the 9, the B, over the A13 chord. And up next comes the arguably most difficult part. Quite a climb here from the low F up to the high E here, with many notes in between. And this is over the F13 chord. And this is also a 16th note after the downbeat. So it's the downbeat, the F, and then a 16th note rest directly after that, before position shifting directly to this position, where he plays the A flat, the minor third, a hammer-on to the major third, which is the same thing he did over the C13, the minor third to the major third with a hammer-on. But now he does the same thing over the F. So the root, the minor third, major third, hammer-on. Then we play C, D, C on the same string. Switch over the index finger to the F. I kind of place it in a bar position here, so I don't actually have to move it. I just move my knuckle. And then I lift off the finger so I can play the open A string, which allows me to make a position shift to the G here, and I play the G, the A flat, and the A, which again is the 9, and the minor third to the major third again. This time it's not played hammer-on, every note is plucked. So the 9 I can't talk, sorry. The 9, the minor third, the major third. And then he moves up to the C, the 5th. And from here he does a position shift where it goes up 2 frets and plays D, E flat, and then the E. And this E does not fit into the F13, but that doesn't stop us because we're already on the D13 chord. So this is the first note, even though this thing isn't over yet. He's playing a phrase over to the next chord. So the E, natural E, fits perfectly over the D13 chord as the 9. So the last note of the F13 bar is the E flat, which is a part of the F13, and then the E in the D13. And when he reaches the E, it's again one of these knuckle shifts, I call them. This is not the, that's the knuckle. What's this part called? I don't know. Tell me if you know. Yes. And then, so it's the 9, the 6th or the 13, the B, the 5th, the A, and then B again, and 2 open D. So that entire line from the low F. And then comes the next C13 with the harmonic structure restarts, so to speak. Then we play nothing on the downbeat. Then on the second beat, we again play with the minor third to the major third. So it's a hammer on from the minor third to the 5th to the 9. E flat, hammer on to E, G, D. Then over the A13 we have an 8th note rest on the downbeat, and then we play with vibrato on the C sharp. So we have the 9 B, minor third, major third, root 13, major third 9, 5th, and major third again. And this is where you almost have to do the rake technique to get the A, F sharp, and C sharp after each other. You just drag your finger across and then vibrato. And then over the F13, which is also on beat 2, just like the C13, we have this one. I've seen some people play it like, you can do that if you have big stretchy fingers, but I like to play it this way, and that's also the way as I've seen Jaco do it. And it sounds, to me, it sounds like an open string on the recording as well. It has that kind of timbre to it. So it's double D, C, and F. So it's the 13th or the 6th, 5th, and root. Then we come to an interesting little thing here. He really exploits this not playing on the downbeat thing here when he goes to the D13 chord. So it's a rest on the downbeat, and then after another 16th note rest on the second beat, we start this chromatic thing. So he plays the C, which is the flat 7, and then the major 7 as a passing note into the root note, D, and that's again a 16th note after the second beat. So then it goes again chromatic from the 9 to the minor third to the major third. So it's, and then he continues through the G sharp A, so it's the 4th or 11th, sharp 4 or sharp 11th, and 5th. And after that we have reached the end of the D13 chord, and now comes the C13 again. The whole thing starts over again with the chords, and we continue this 60th note offbeat thing with playing flat, open D, C, and an open A. All right. And that's over the C13. That's the minor third. It doesn't do the minor to major there. It just goes from the minor third, open D, C, A. And then comes probably one of my favorite licks in this tune, the one that comes over the A13 here. And this is the first time he plays on the 16th note right before the beat instead of after it. So it's a dotted 8th note rest, and then you play a 16th note right before the second beat. And on the second beat you also play a note, you play a B, and you go up to the C, and then a little staccato on the C, and a C sharp. So it's the root, 9, minor third, major third, a 16th note rest on the beat, and then chromatic again, D, natural 11 or 4th, sharp 4, sharp 11, 5th. And then he moves up the neck a bit to play descending instead of ascending. The A, the G sharp, and the G, so it's the root, major 7, and the minor 7. And now we have reached the F13 chord, where it does another position shift. It goes up here to position 7, and a pull-off. This is the first time in the song that he plays a pull-off. He's done some hammer-ons, but this is the first time there's a pull-off. So the E flat, the flat 7 in the F13 chord, to the 6th or the 13, and then he moves to the D string for the C, and then double D, C, F, down to the root. And this is also a 16th note rest on the downbeat. And it kind of follows along with the previous bar with the A13. And here comes the thing where I've seen lots of mistakes in transcriptions over the D13 here. Most transcriptions I've seen do this. The A, the C, and the D, with some vibrato on the C, and the notes are, I'd argue they are correct. However, the A here is actually quickly hammered on. It's like a grace note. You can almost not hear it. It's very fast. It almost sounds like a slide, but it isn't. It's a hammer on. And he plays it up here in the 10th position. So it's very quick hammer on from G to A, directly up to the C with some vibrato, and then a staccato D. And the final two 16th notes of that bar is the high C. And then here comes an interesting part. Here's another part where I've seen different fingerings, and also some strange ones. However, this is what I see and what I hear. G, A, G, and then the same thing again, but from the C. The tricky part here is that the G is a 16th note syncopation before the second beat. So the G is slightly longer and comes slightly earlier than the C does, because the C arrives on the beat. And most the transcriptions I've seen, which include fingerings, they play it like that, where you have on the same string G, A, G, C, D, C. However, if you listen very closely and slow the original track down, you can actually hear that the D slightly bleeds over to the C before he moves up to the next part. And that tells me that he's actually using the open string. And also, the live videos supports this theory of mine, the way he holds his fingers there. And then that's over the C13, so he starts on the 5th, 6th, 5th, root, 9, root. And that leads directly into the A13, and he doesn't stop here, he just continues the 16th note phrase here with the 5th, the root, F sharp, which is the 13th, open D, C sharp, B. So he lands on the major third and the 9. And then the next thing here is like, it doesn't really belong to the A13 chord. To my ears, it belongs more to the F13, even though it's still technically in the same bar as the A13. He plays the open G, E flat, open D, and C, which sounds more like it belongs to the F13 with the 9, the flat 7, the 13th, and the 5th, rather than the flat 7, flat 5, perfect fourth or natural fourth, and minor third of A13. And this is actually supported also by the fact that this phrase doesn't end here, it goes on into the F13 bar, however in a quite interesting way. So we have the G, E flat, D, C. And then he continues with a 16th note offbeat and plays chromatically from the root note. So he actually, when he lands on the F13 chord, it's the F, the G flat, the flat 9, and up to G, which is the natural or perfect 9. And then there's quite a bit of rest here. You have a half note rest for the rest of the F13 bar, and then a half note rest again for the D13, and another 8 note rest before this final phrase here, which is quite high. You have the G here on the 15th. Sorry, not 17th, not 15th. 17th fret of the D string, the note G. And then the A directly up to the high C. This is how Jaco plays it from the fingerings I've seen live. But I actually prefer to play it like this, all on one string. And that's because, first, because I have quite long fingers and I like to use them when I can. The other one is that it gives me more time to switch down and start over, because after this final 16th note here is the final 16th note of the bar, and then you only have 1/16th rest before the whole thing starts over again with that thing again. So instead of being at fret 14, I can be at fret 12. Oh, play the right note, please. So I like to do it that way, but if you want to play it exactly like Jaco did, that's the way. And then it starts over again, it's the same thing, all the way up to the chromatic over the D13 and C13. And this time, the second time around, he doesn't continue from there. He stays on this one and just waits until the chord progression starts over again with the same 4 chords, and then he plays the same line again. and then you wait until this thing comes back again, which it doesn't play, but you know what I mean. You can play it if you want to. A little main melody thing, sort of, or intro melody at least. Then we come to the interesting part. There's a change here. I wouldn't necessarily say that we changed the key, because this song doesn't really have a key, since it's 13 chords just moving around. So the tonal center kind of shifts every bar. But there's a new progression, at least. It's a new chord progression. Still 13 chords, all of it. But instead of starting on C, we now start on E. So now the chord progression is E13, D flat 13, or C sharp 13, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to call it C sharp 13, because E sharp and all those. If you have like a sharp 11 in C, that's a double raised F sharp. No, please don't. In some context it might be correct, but I prefer the D flat 13 here. So we have the E flat 13, the D flat 13, the A 13, and the F sharp 13. E13, D flat 13, A13, and F sharp 13. And this is probably the simplest part for the bass. It's pretty much just an arpeggio. You play nothing on the downbeat, and then on the second beat you play eighth notes. The root twice, open E, major third, G sharp, fifth, B, and then you have reached the next bar, which is the D flat 13. So you play the D flat or the C sharp, depending on how you look at it. And then you do the same thing, but you start on the A instead. So you lead up to the F sharp. So it's over the A13 chord, it's the open A, major third, C sharp, and E fifth, and then the F sharp 13 root. And again, nothing on the downbeat there, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yep. And then the same thing again, with a small addition of an octave on before the first. So instead of a full quarter note rest, there's just an eighth note rest, and you play the octave E here. One, and then the A is the same. Then finally we get some rest. We have 3 rounds of this chord progression. And if you so wish, you can join the melody line that enters on the third time, which would be, let's see if I can even play those in the, no I can't, not in the high position. It's the C sharp, the B flat, the F sharp, and the D sharp. And those are very interesting, because those notes against the chords are actually the 13th note. From the 13 chords it's the 13th, the 6th for each one. It's just a whole note for each. So it's 1, 2, and then comes the interesting part here. This is where I see most of the mistakes in the transcriptions, and definitely in the original transcription I used from some kind of real book thing. It's an E13 chord here, and he starts on again with a 16th note rest, but it's on beat 3, so beats 1 and 2 are silent. So after the third beat, the 16th note off beat, there's this phrase. I think the original transcription I used had the root note again, so it's root, fifth root, but I really hear open D there. And this open D also allows for a quick position shift, which you need here, because then you play the sharp 11, the A sharp, the G sharp major third, and the 9, the F sharp, and then the C sharp, and this note here, that's the last note of the bar, the last 16th note, and it's really interesting because this C sharp, which is the 6th of the E chord, or the 13th, is also the root of the next chord. D, you can see it as a D flat there, D flat or C sharp. Same note, different name, and it makes for a quite interesting transition to the D flat chord. It's almost like it's a syncopation of the next chord, even though it still fits with the last chord. And then on some live footage, I've seen that he plays the F, which is the major third of the D flat, the B flat, and then to the G. So it's the major third, the 6th, and the sharp 11, the natural G. But you can't really hear that on the original recording. I don't know if it's something he added live, or maybe he just wanted to add something that wasn't really clearly pronounced in the original recording. Perhaps it's there, although you can't hear it. Maybe it's some kind of muted or muffled note or whatever. But anyhow, if you want to include it, I've in my transcription I've put a parenthesis around the note, so you know it's an optional note. I really hear on the original recording it really sounds like a rest to me. It really sounds like it doesn't play the F, and then some vibrato on the G. Then on the next chord, the A13, it's a half note rest, and then he plays this phrase, and that's one that I've struggled with a bit, both note-wise, because there's a note in there that I was unsure of, but I think I've nailed it now, and also the fingering for it. I've seen some variations with that thing going on. But if you check the live clips, it actually makes some kind of sense to do it the way he does it. So we have the F sharp and the G, which is the 13th and the 9th, 5th E, up to the 13 again, then the flat 7 open G, sorry, 5th sharp 11 or sharp 4, major 3rd, and then over the F sharp 13, which is the next note or the next chord coming up, he plays the sharp 4th directly on the downbeat, which is kind of evil. So the B sharp, technically we can view it as a C, but if we're being pedantic about the enharmonic equivalence, then it's supposed to be a B sharp, because the sharp the 4th of F sharp is B, and if you raise the 4th you get a B sharp, so it's B sharp. And then you go to the G sharp, D sharp, C sharp, and F sharp, back to the root. So it's the sharp 4th, sharp 11, 9, that's I guess the 13, 5th, and root. And that phrase from the A13 to the F sharp 13 goes like this when you play it together. And again, it's the raking technique. All the strings, boop, boop, same finger. Then we reach the E13 again. The progression starts over, and then we have a thing that's kind of close to the G and C thing we had in the main section before, but now we have it moved here to the 5th of the E instead of the 5th of the C, and now we can't use the open strings here because there are no strings to allow for that. However, this is where it gets interesting. Because what I hear on the original recording, when we go to, it's not back to the E. I hear something between an open D and an E flat. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's just some kind of ghost in the machine thing happening there, or whatever. But I think he actually plays it with an open D string to allow for the position shift that comes after it over the D flat 13 chord. And that goes. So it's the B, C sharp, back to B, E, F sharp, open D, which is the flat 7 of the E13. And then the D flat 13 chord, he plays the sharp 11, the 13 or the 6th, and major 3rd. And then he moves up here to position 6, where he plays the 13th back to the 5th and to the root. And this is also again going back to the old 16th note rest on the beat thing. So first he goes up to the D flat, and then he plays the same 2 notes again, but going down to the E flat, which is the 9 of the D flat, and also the flat 5, or the sharp 11, if you view it as a D sharp, over the A13 chord. And he doesn't actually play anything else over the A13 chord. So the last note of the D flat 13 bar is the E flat here, and he just holds that over to the A13 bar with some vibrato. And then comes a little thing here which really surprised me, but it made sense when I listened back to the original and slowed it down and really analyzed it, how the strings sound different and how the fingering position affects the tone. Normally I would play the F sharp and E here, the rhythm that's actually on the beat for once. So it's a half note rest over the F sharp 13 chord, and then and this is the way I think most people play it. 2 F sharp, E, F sharp, 16th note rest, F sharp, E, F sharp, or in this position on the A string. However, that's not what he usually does, and I don't think it's what he does on the original recording either, because it sounds the E isn't as clearly pronounced as the F sharp, and on the live clips you can see him play in this position where he has the F sharp, the root here on the index finger, and then the E on the A string instead. It has quite a different sound then. It gives the E sharp a bit more bassy and muffled sound rather than being on D string, and also the finger technique makes it so it kind of bleeds over a little bit if you don't mute it correctly, and I think I can hear some of that going on. Not much, and you really can't tell unless you slow it down. And then he does that for 3 times on the same bar. So after he does this the first time, the whole thing starts over again, right on the E flat, on the E13. E flat. I can't say E flat. It's supposed to be E13. E13, 2, 3, 4. D flat 13, 3. A 1, 2, A13. I really can't talk. I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. So E13, D flat 13, A13, and F sharp 13. And when it comes to the F sharp again, same phrase again, and another round. And then we have 6 bars of rest with some drum solo features at the end. And finally this thing comes back, but starting from the C sharp and E this time. And then we have the just an excuse to play open strings, I think. So it's open E, quarter note rest, A, D, and then 2 Gs. And the phrasing of this is that directly after comes the E, and it's on the right after the third beat of the bar. So it's on the 3 and. Bom. And again, he doesn't really play this. This is just if you want to follow along to the recording with that main melody. But he does play the open string. It really this ending is quite surprising, especially regarding the complexity of the rest of the tune. I really think he just pulled a prank on us. I want to use all the 4 open strings on the bass, and he did it. So kudos, I guess. However, this is the first time in the song where we actually deviate from this 4-chord progression thing. So the chords here over the E is E7 sharp 9, the Jimi Hendrix chord, and then we have an F sharp with A, the minor third, as the bass note. So F sharp over A. And then we have an E chord over the D bass note, so the flat 7 in the bass. And then it's a unison G, or 2 unison Gs. So it's no chord there, it's just all of the instruments playing 2 Gs. And we phrase it with accents on all of them. And the E and the D are kind of staccato accents. So it's like the final 2 bars are... And that's it. Thank you.